Hello, Internet. My name is John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial organizational psychology, 10-year user of R for statistical applications, and for the last 6 or 7 years, I've also been using R to author things like academic papers and websites and slide decks. And so every week, I just hang out for an hour with some collaborators who also use R to author projects, and we make ourselves available if anyone out there in the ether has an interest in trying to learn how to use R to author things. So we're here as a resource and bounce ideas and questions off of if you are interested in maybe trying to do some of this stuff. So every week, in addition to this kind of intention, or I think we'll get there eventually, but the intention is to open this up and have truly something metaphorically like an office hour where we can help other people kind of work through issues or questions or obstacles that they might encounter. Um, until we get there, what we've been doing instead is we've been checking out a feature that R facilitates that's related to authoring. And so, because of what's going on here in the USA today, we thought that it might be a good opportunity to check out some of the surveying features of R. Now, this is going to be a truly shared experience in terms of coming into this fresh. I haven't checked this out hardly at all, so this is going to be a multi-week exploration. Tonight we'll be just kind of familiarizing ourselves with it. Maybe we'll see, but we'll probably aim toward building a template survey. See if we can host it. Just get a sense of where the information is going to be stored as well. If there's any security issues with that, kind of some of the ins and outs of just creating your survey. We'll see what kinds of items we can generate, and if there's any limitations that we can identify. And so I've actually been using a different R platform to use to create surveys with, and that's called Form R. And so I'm very interested in checking out surveydown. This will be new to me, but it's also something that I'm curious to see if I can apply it in my kind of not day to day, but week to week or month to month kind of activities, because I do end up working with quite a lot of surveys. So we'll be checking that out. But again, just as a caveat, we're not, I'm not certainly, and whoever else shows up is not going to be an expert on survey down either. So we'll be coming at this fresh. So let's take a look at what happened last week.
Last time, you remember, Rocky dropped a bombshell under the meeting of the World Economic Council when he told its members,
Gentlemen, one of you is in cahoots with a box-top bad man.
Impossible.
I think he's right.
Was ist cahoots?
Look, if phony box tops are showing up in what you call us, Dan,
And they are.
and if nobody even knows where it is except you people,
And they don't.
then, ergo, one of you must be sending the counterfeit box tops there.
Brilliant deduction.
Magnifique. What a brain.
And he's my buddy.
We must find out which one of us it is.
And I know just the man to do the job.
Who's that?
Our chief security officer. Call him quickly.
Calling Inspector Soames. Inspector Hemlock Soames, come in, please.
Come in. I am in.
You're the chief security officer?
Hemlock Soames at your service.
That's a very small world, the Bullwinkle and Rocky world. They always seem to run into the same characters. It's kind of like Star Wars got that problem at some point. So it's this huge galaxy or galaxies far, far away, but keep running into people that are related to each other. I don't know. Anyway, so Rocky and Bullwinkle, they always seem to run into the same characters. I thought last week was pretty neat. I wasn't aware of this feature prior to probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. So as we're trying to come up with features to explore and highlight and check out on these kind of weekly focused explorations, this was something that was kind of a little buried in terms of the documentation that I'm scrolling through to actually to actually kind of see what some of the options are. And so we called it zombie slides last week, just not because they're zombie slides, but it last week was 2 days before Halloween. And so just like tonight, we're trying to be topical with a polling survey package. We were trying to be topical last week too with the flavor of the season. And so this multiplex option that you see here on line 5 in this YAML. So what you're seeing in the box here is a reconstruction of a very minimally exemplified YAML. So it starts on line 1 with those 3 dashes, ends on line 6 with the ending 3 dashes, and then in between you see the standard title, and then the format is the important thing here. And so the format are these reveal JS slides that we've been using weekly, and I've come to really appreciate and love. So I can't imagine getting away from these reveal JS slides back to something like PowerPoint or Google Slides, that sort of thing. I think I'm here for good until something else comes along that has similar functionality and kind of front end specification. So the coding part of it, I'm enjoying that. But so these reveal JS slides, they have what's referred to as a multiplex capability or multiplex extension. So that this extension, we've played with extensions to Quarto before, and some of them need to be installed locally. This one comes bundled with Quarto when you set up your computer such that you can use it to generate slides like this and papers and websites and books and things like that. Multiplex comes built in, and so the syntax specification in the YAML it couldn't be simpler. There aren't that many options that we saw to play with multiplex. It's either just kind of turn on or turn off, and you don't need to turn it off. The default is it's not going to have this multiplex feature. But if you do initiate that and enable that, what's going to happen is typically when you render these HTML slides, there's just one slide deck that's rendered, and so what you're looking at right now is just one slide deck. And so if we look at kind of the outline of it, you see that it's got, was it seven different slides on it, but this is one file. So if I go ahead and look at my file system, you see that file identified right here in the lower right hand HTML file. That's what's created when I sorry about that. When I knit or render my QMD, which is the script specification for my QMD, for that my player is going to be kind of annoying me. How do I get rid of that? So when we go ahead and enable or initiate this multiplex option, instead of just getting that one HTML file, the HTML extension will just be appended to whatever the name is of your QMD, of the script file. Now we're going to create two. And so one is going to be for the presenter and one's for the viewers. And so what you can do is go ahead and share that one for the viewers. And the way that we shared it was I just published that file through Bookdown, which is a really nice feature that Posit has for people who use RStudio or use Positron. I'm sure it's enabled in there as well. But so publishing on Bookdown is how I've been sharing all the weekly slides. If you look in the comments, there's a slide. This slide deck is available. But we went ahead and shared just a multiplex slide deck as well. And then what happens is if the presenter uses his or or his or her, I'm still in Halloween mode, I guess. If the presenter uses his or her presenter slide deck, then the viewer will see whatever the presenter is choosing to see. So the progression of the viewer's slides will mimic or parrot whatever the presenter slides are doing in terms of sequencing through the slides. Now you can opt out of that if you're the viewer, but unless you do opt out, you're going to see what the presenter sees. Now there's some limitations to that. So we saw that, for example, if I choose to use a speaker view on my slide deck, this speaker view does not come through to the presenters. But if you're interacting with your slides outside of the speaker view, the viewer is going to see exactly what you see. So it's a neat option. We were trying to think of use cases for it, so situations in which we might want to use it. Immediately, I was thinking in a teaching context, but I think my mind, when I quit being a full-time professor, it was still toward the end of COVID, and we were still doing some hybrid stuff. So in my mind, I guess I was thinking more about kind of virtual classes, and it seems to me like that would be something that's useful in a virtual class application, especially on something like Zoom here, where the presentation needs to kind of take up a large space of the screen, and you're not necessarily focusing on the presenter, him or herself. So that seemed to me like that's maybe a situation where someone might be interested. There's several other, I'm sure, that people can think of, but it's nice to know that it's there. So it's a different way to actually interact with your slides from the perspective of the presenter and the viewers. So tonight, and again, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing this for probably a few weeks, because tonight we're coming into this just completely fresh. I started looking at this package a little bit, and then I decided that it might be more interesting for the channel, for this live stream, just to come in completely fresh. So maybe anyone who's interested in using R to author, or using R to create surveys, maybe you can see the way that we struggle, and the ways that we go about trying to learn what it is that's going on with this package. So we'll be coming in on it fresh, and then progressively, I'm assuming over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have more and more facility with the package and understand what's going on, and instead of being completely feeling around in the dark, we should have a little better idea as the weeks go on. That tends to be the way these things work. What else did I want to say about survey? Now, I guess I did mention Form R, which is another, like everything with R and with using R to author, there's several different ways to do all of these things. Form R interacts with Google Sheets, is kind of the default way that you store your data. It's also the default. It's also the mode through which you create your survey itself. So it's a Google Sheet kind of layout. So this, I think, is going to be a little bit different, but let's go ahead and just check it out here. So there's a hyperlink on that last slide if you're following along with this week's slide deck, and that's going to take us to surveydown.org page. Now, I did take a little bit of look at this, and one of the things that I noticed was you can kind of circle back between their GitHub development page and then this survey.org to get different pieces of information. I think that's going to be useful. It's going to be helpful. This overview I thought was nice. So I was mostly curious about where data is stored and who has access to it and what's the security like of that system. And then I did check out some of their demos. We'll take a look at more of them here collectively together. But one of the things I was curious about when I saw that it's using Shiny to power some of this is I was curious about any sort of lag and just kind of response time. The and this is for the survey taker. So people are so over surveyed. Just any little blip that might cause someone to have even a little bit of frustration and say, it's not worth my time. I'm not going to do it. I guess I might be a little overly concerned about that, but that's one of the concerns when I see Shiny is when I interact with Shiny apps, there's generally kind of some of that circle loading time, and we'll play with that. So we'll see what that looks like. I think I'm going to need to create a Supabase account. Let's go ahead and see if we can check that out. That looks very developer-y, doesn't it? Just immediately. I don't know what any of that stuff is. So we're gonna just rely on the package creators here. Let's see who they are. Well, we've got quite a few contributors here. And my internet might be a little bit slow today too. It's been raining here all day, so I got rained on when I went to vote. I just walked down to my polling station. It's not, there weren't hardly any people at my polling station, so it's a high school here. It's about 4 or 5 blocks away from my house, and I'm just on the edge of Minneapolis. So every time I voted in this particular place, there hasn't been any sort of line. There's never been any issue getting in. What's going on with this thing? It's taking too long. All right. Anyway, a bunch of nice looking people that are contributing to it. I was just kind of curious to see if these are academics. Generally speaking, it is academic people with academic jobs that tend to put the time and effort into building things like this. Form R is a couple of European academics primarily who are working on it. So these 3 systems, we're going to use Shiny. We've talked about quite a bit. Quarto over the weeks. We certainly have been relying on Supabase. Is brand new. Never heard of it before now. Kind of like their logo. But so we'll design the survey as a Quarto document. Interesting. Okay. So we're probably going to need the package for that. Or what I'm assuming is happening is you're looking at a Quarto document here. In the YAML, let's create a new file so it's not quite as scary. So we'll do a new Quarto document. And what should happen if we load the package, what I'm anticipating happening is we should get another option here in the left-hand box, which is not just document presentation interactive, but we should get some packages or template options. And I'm guessing that that's going to be an option that's enabled once we actually load surveydown. I haven't loaded it yet, so we convert it into a Shiny app that can be hosted online. That's going to be another interesting development here. The standard protocol to host Shiny apps, they allow you free space for a certain number of apps and a certain number of hours of use of the app. I think it's per month or per week. Me and some of the other people that come on here and play around with some of these authoring things, we're kind of at our limit of free stuff. So this will be interesting. I could see this could be a bottleneck here in terms of hosting. I could see that becoming a little cost prohibitive, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. And then storing again. So this is another bottleneck's probably the wrong word here, but this is another point that we'll have to do some exploration on and see what the level of security is on Supabase. The kinds of things that I do, there aren't too many ethical or data privacy concerns about. Um, I don't collect any sort of sensitive information, certainly any sort of probing or uncomfortable information. You know, some of the online, some of the providers of survey tools, they actually by default have a lot of intrusive information that's gathered. Qualtrics. One of the last times I was using Qualtrics for a for a for a survey that went out across the globe, actually. So it was a multinational survey. It turned out to be a multinational survey. Um, but the latitude and longitude information that's collected from IP addresses by default was so specific that I would have been able to geographically zoom in on on basically people's living rooms. Um, so that was something when I first started playing with maps in R. That was something that I decided to map out, and once I saw it, I was like, "Oh my, this isn't good. I shouldn't have access to that accurate of information." So when I deal with Qualtrics data and it has latitude and longitude, one of the first things I typically do is truncate that or round it, so it comes in with a decimal point and then 5 or 6 numbers after that. And so if you just chop that to 1 or 2 numbers, you're gonna anonymize the location sufficiently, I think, of your respondents if that's something that you're concerned about. Okay, so documentation, this is going to take us back to that surveydown.org, the site that I said we're probably going to go back and forth with. And they probably have a few different hyperlinks in here. I can tell that these people are like me with authoring. They're trying. Once you see some of these neat features, you want to use them. So there's notes in here. That now this is marked down because it's in Quarto, so it's not as prevalent here. But if we go to their documentation site, I'm seeing some just kind of, yeah, that's fun to play with. So I would have initiated that too. Just the night and day kind of switch here. Maybe I'll leave it on day because it's dark outside and that makes me look a little brighter. But we'll go back to the GitHub page and see about the installation. So I think this is the first thing that we want to do. We already have Quarto installed. I think one of the things, maybe might not be a bad idea one of these upcoming weeks, to revisit the installation of Quarto. The I try, well, so far on these 50 different sessions, we haven't repeated anything. It's always been something new and unique. But it might not be a bad idea to revisit just the installation of Quarto since we've been using Quarto so much. Or I could try to snip something and make a little tutorial. That might be better, actually, so maybe I'll do that. Okay, so we already have R installed. We have Quarto installed. And again, that's a separate installation from R. You do need to go to the Quarto site, grab it, and install it on your computer. So here's, oh, surveydown is on CRAN. Okay. I didn't know that. I thought this was still just kind of a development package. So we'll go ahead and install it from CRAN then. And you can type into the console, or you can use, I'm in RStudio, you can use the RStudio IDE. And I've been using this more frequently. I'm a staunch advocate of documenting everything you do, and that's why everything has scripts. All of my projects have scripts. But package installation is not something that needs careful documentation. We're going to have that information available to us if we need it. We're going to have the version. We won't have when we accessed it, but I haven't ever had need of that information in terms of troubleshooting or debugging anything. So while that's installing, let's take a look again at what it says. What do we do after we install? Load the package. That looks pretty standard. Background and okay. Well, let's read a little bit about this since this is just an introduction. Most survey platforms use drag and drop interfaces. They're also not reproducible. Again, yes, this is a big reason why we use R. Is the drag and drop is fine, but one of the things that drag and drop tends to not have is documentation with it. So the reproducibility of that is questionable. And so one of the big reasons that we're using R for everything is we want these reproducible research standards, and have careful documentation of everything we do, so we can go ahead and do it again if we need to, reproduce it. Many require a paid subscription or license to use. Yeah, that is one of the big reasons why we might want to, in addition to the reproducibility point, which is a good one, the paid part is something that we're also going to be interested in. Again, I'm curious to see how they navigate that with Shiny. But so the surveydown package was designed to address these issues. All survey content is defined with plain text. Okay, and they're just talking about this. So this looks like a mess here, but all the words that you're seeing are what create the nicely formatted HTML slides that we take a look at each week. So we're going to have a survey.qmd file and an app. So the app is going to be our Shiny app, and survey, sometimes the naming convention of your files is important. It is important in Shiny's case if we want to publish using the posit options for publishing. You need to have that the source code be actually called app.r. So it's one of these little quirks that we come across when we try to use these sorts of programs and platforms that can be hosted online. So again, this is going to be the aspect of it that we'll see if this interferes at all with the paid subscription or license to use. Now, even if it does, the hosting options that Posit, and again, I don't work for Posit. I don't have any affiliation with Posit. I'm just very impressed with kind of their support and philosophy. But they have a scalable option for this. So even if you do exceed that small number of apps and small number of user hours per week, which I can see really getting exceeded really quickly in the case of a survey that might go out to multiple people. The scalability of their paid tiers are such that it's accessible at low levels. And then what I was looking at for my applications, I think it maxed out at $3,000 a year for complete utter freedom to do whatever you want. Have it branded with your customized URL and all that kind of stuff. And so that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. But in terms of capability, that's a point that you can get to through starting at a much smaller point. And it sounded to me like it was very fair. Okay, so it can be hosted online. That makes your survey easy to reproduce, share, and version control. Okay, so we will probably be doing this through a project folder, and we'll probably host that project on GitHub. And so when we say version control with tools like Git, that's kind of the way that we've been structuring our projects as well. It's something I've been slowly learning about, and getting working into my work processes over the course of the last probably 7-8 years or so. So the survey data is also owned by the survey designer. Interesting wording there. In a separate Postgres. Thank goodness it's Postgres. We wouldn't want pregres. I don't know what either of those mean. Oh, and they recommend Supabase. Okay, so we might have a couple of options here in terms of where we host it. Let's do a Google search on Postgres. So I'm not sure what that means. Object Relational Database Management System. You know, I probably should have taken a course in computer programming at some point. I did go to a summer camp, but I think I was in fifth or sixth grade. Um, and I don't really remember much of what we did. It was a nice camp. I think it was about a week, maybe a week long. Okay. So the survey data is collected. They recommend Supabase. We're going to follow their recommendations, but this somewhat alleviates concern going in about those issues of data access and privacy and so on and so forth. So if there's other options, if that was something that you were concerned with, I'm guessing just from the way this is phrased, that you could probably work in a more secure database, maybe something proprietary to your organization, if that's something that's available to you. If you're curious where this whole idea came from, yeah, kind of. There's a blog post. We won't spend a lot of time on this. That doesn't exist yet. Well, I mean, Form R is out there. And Form R was out there in 2023. So, oh, here they do talk about Form R. Okay, that's good. Current platform of choice is Form R. So these people are coming from a similar spot that I'm coming from. I'm curious to see why what some of their issues with Form R were. So while Form R is powerful, there's a bit of a learning curve. That is true. And isn't the easiest tool for novices. Okay, interesting. So it sounds like they're thinking about the user experience here a little bit, which is nice. One of the things I've learned over all these years of working with R and doing this stuff is, the novice aspect of it. I think it just comes from being intimidated by script. So just all this wording, and all this wording has been built up over the course of months for the slides. But I think that's the problem with novices, is it's not that the programming itself is difficult, but it's just the sheer kind of intimidation of looking at a wall of words and the questioning of how does that map to this thing that I want to produce. Okay. Again, they're getting into the version control and reproducibility aspect. And it's that drag and drop aspect that they don't like. And it's going to be an issue with everything we've been doing. It's going to be an issue with adoption of what they're doing as well. It's just we're a minority. The people that really are adamant about this reproducible kind of standard of how you structure things in your work. I don't know what percent it is, but in my field of psychology, it's really low. It's got to be, I don't know, just making up a number. It's maybe 10% of us that have a really strong feeling about this. So I want a markdown-based survey framework. Okay, so that might be part of it. So I mentioned it earlier, but Form R, it doesn't have a lot of R. It uses Markdown, but it uses Markdown or you can use Markdown, the language itself, which again is just a language that facilitates conversion to different file types. So PDF files, HTML files. The Form R is primarily operated the way I've been using it, and I'm guessing the way that these people have been using it is you primarily work within Google Forms for that, or just any spreadsheet would probably work as well. So okay, inspiration is packages like Xeringen. I love this guy. Who is this guy? He sounds like me. John Paul Helvetston. Well, he's got the same first name as me. Faculty, School of Engineering and Applied Science. Look at that bow tie. I like this guy. engineering management and systems and engineering. What was that, George Washington? What's GW? Man, this site is spammy for an academic site. I'm guessing that's George Washington. Yeah, George Washington University. Okay, sounds legit to me. Uh, so where were we? He liked Jernigan. Framework doesn't yet exist. Yeah, so he's aware of Form R. So I've got a name for it. That sounds great. Post is a call for help. Oh, well, I wonder if they still want help. I'd be interested in helping them out. This says they have a help link down here. Okay, so that's just kind of a link to the repo. So this sounds like a documentation of him kind of saying how things are going. So let's go back to let's see if we can get back to the GitHub page. So we just checked out his blog post. And he's got a to-do list of things they want to do, and then a citation. Okay, so let's go back to the survey down page itself and see if we can get a sense of what this is all about. So here's the reproduction of what we had on the GitHub page. Click here to get started. Oof, a lot of documentation. Okay, so we did do the installation. I'm gonna kind of speed read this a little bit, I think. Let me see if I can blow it up. Hopefully that's big enough for people to see. Every surveydown survey is composed of a survey and an app. Easy enough. Survey QMD has the questions, which renders as an HTML file. And then the app itself is a R script defining an app that contains the global settings. Okay. So this is going to be the more programming part of it. Database configuration. And then, we're going to have our conditional skipping in there as well. So sounds like we might have some logic statements that are in the app itself. That's we'll see what that looks like. And then yeah, here's the naming conventions, as we already talked about. Those in these sorts of applications, those naming conventions can be important. So we'll have to make sure that we name our QMD survey and our Shiny app. Surveydown package provides a set of functions for defining the content and configuration options. Each function starts with SD underscore to make them easy to identify. Well, yeah, it's easy to identify, but it's annoying to write. What? Each function starts with S? Oh, come on. All right. We'll see about that. Platform is based on some basic principles. And again, tonight is just getting us kind of familiar with this, and we'll test it out here. But I'm coming at this fresh as well. So I don't have anything loaded, haven't tried any of this before. Next couple of weeks, we'll ramp up our skills with it. So add content to your survey using Markdown text. That's fine. I'm sure we can do that. Define survey questions in R code chunks. Okay, so SD question is going to be important. I'm guessing we're going to have different types there that we can specify in that function. That's going to be a big function. Define pages using fences. I'm kind of sick of fences. So Quarto has gone crazy with fences. And these things, let me see if I can find a fence listing in here. So here's how I'm doing columns on the reveal JS slides, and this one isn't even bad, but the opening fence on line 43 is closed on line 55, and then there's a fence on 44 and a closing fence on 50, and then there's empty fences on 52 and 53, and I just kind of have those in there as placeholders. But you'll notice in our studio, the color coding that's supposed to help with the opening and closing fence doesn't always match, and in my experience it usually doesn't. I might need to update our studio so that it might be the visual style that I'm using too. I like one called Monokai. I'm very used to the feedback that I get on it with the light blue and the red and I'm talking about in my scripting itself. So these fences you can get lost in fences really quickly, and I frequently do. So I often get lost in fences. So I'm not sure I like this idea about pages being defined by fences, but again, we'll kind of navigate that when we get to it. Navigation buttons with the SD Next. That suggests that maybe there's some customizability on navigation buttons. So these usually are, click next to advance to the next set of questions. Add rich functionality using a variety of server options. Okay. So we're gonna have to, it looks to me like we're gonna have to have some Shiny experience to use this. And then again, yeah, here's the part that is gonna be probably a no-go zone for some people, which is the way in which data is stored and where it's actually stored. So, okay, installation we already did, I'm guessing. Start with a template. Let's do that. So, one of the things after we loaded the package, and I guess I never confirmed that it's installed, it looks like it is. So we said maybe I wonder if we look at a Quarto document, if we now have a template for a survey, and I don't see that in my IDE that's actually popping up. I'm just looking to see if there's any other options here. And I don't usually open things this way, so that might be part of the issue as well. So I don't see it in the interactive. I don't see it. We can try Shiny. No, I don't think that's going to come up. Okay. So we'll do it the way that they're suggesting. Imagine that. So in the console, run the following to set up a template survey. I'm going to exit my live stream project just so we don't muck up those files even more. How's the election going? I got everything off, so I don't think anyone's here to give me feedback. So in the console, we'll go ahead and repeat what they suggest, which is surveydown : is just saying this function is available in the surveydown package, and the function itself is sd_create_survey. Oh, then it wants where to put it. I got a Kulas folder, and we'll see if that works. I guess I shouldn't have done it in the Kulas folder. I don't see it there. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it created a project as well. So I wasn't expecting that, but again, we didn't read the documentation. But so create a folder located at with project. Okay, so every survey should be in its own separate project folder. So let's go ahead and access that if we can. It's at a weird spot. So it's in my documents folder, which is why that was a little different than what I expected. I should have gone off the C route and then into the Kulas folder instead of just Kulas. Let's see if we have something here while we're waiting. I haven't done this one for a while.
This here's my brother Jake. He's gonna be staying with me for a few weeks.
Okay.
Was that loud? It seemed like that was loud. The name of this is weird. Okay, it's coming in as Kulas. I wonder if I must have created that folder, which I did not mean to do. So we'll play with it here. But there's got to be different ways of kind of coming in and interacting with this. So the app file defines the Shiny app. So that's fine. I think we'll just use that. So let's see if we can just run this template. So it's loading the library. The YAML is interesting. The YAML here isn't specifying any type of product to be created. We see the fence here with the different page. So this is going to be one page. Welcome to our survey. Here's a basic multiple choice question. So this is the structure. Wow. Okay, so this is going to take some getting used to. So type is multiple choice. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. So here's our chunk, and they mentioned that we're going to create the questions in the chunk. So I'm guessing is multiple choice. The ID is probably the variable name, and then they have the option for a longer label on that. The label is going to be important. So the label is the question itself. The values, so on the left, I'm guessing, are what's displayed to the survey respondent. On the right are most likely the values that are going to be stored upon response. But again, we can't confirm that yet. We have this is the first I've seen it. So you need to insert next buttons with SD next. We already saw that. So the SD thing, I guess it's not that annoying, but we'll get used to it. You need to insert next buttons and set the next page argument to the name of the page you want to go to. Okay, that's logical. That also means that we could probably do conditional skips and just skip entire pages. Now okay, so the first page does have an opening and a closed fence. That helps a little bit. It also has a tag. So that means we should be able to, later in the survey, we should be able to link back to this. And so once we render this, I think we'll try that and see if we can, just for tonight, play with that a little bit. So penguins, and then we should have a next page that goes to the tag here. And so again, that's got to be important on line 34 and on line 39. Now the .sd page that might be important for the page to be recognized. So they said in the documentation, they just said fences are used, but it looks to me like the command on the fence is probably this SD page. So that's also not, it's not just the fence, it's actually the what looks like CSS there. So this is another page, survey down in curly brackets. What is that rendered like? I guess I don't know. I never use curly brackets just alone. Let's see if we can see what that looks like. It's just curly brackets. Okay. Survey down supports many types of questions. Text. So the structure of this, it looks like they're using consistently double quotes, single quotes usually work as well. So type ID and label are probably going to be standard across questions. And again, ID's got to be the variable name in the database, and then the label is the actual question itself. Because this is a text type question, we don't need to have values here. Be curious to see how that's stored. Okay, so let's just render this and see what happens. So on my, and again, this is coming up in Edge. On my Edge, I have an edge. So I have an edge on these radial buttons. It's actually, I don't know if it's coming through on the screen or not, but there's a little vertical stop on the left. I wonder if there's a number. There's got to be numbering options in here too, right? Next doesn't really seem to be doing much for me. Here's another page. Okay, so we should be able to, I don't know why there's an asterisk here. There's an asterisk here as well. I wonder if that means something's incomplete. We should be able to follow this convention and just add another one. Chilly Willy. So that should display as, yeah, we're seeing on the left what the display looks like, and then on the right, and spacing doesn't matter in these chunks, so. And then on the right should be the value that it's stored as. And hopefully tonight we'll have enough time to look and see how this is actually stored. There's Chilly Willy. Again, those asterisks, I'm going to be curious about those. Let's see what our app does. So there's some good documentation here in the default file. Stores data on a database that you define. Okay, so we're going to have to set that up. And we're already almost at an hour. So I think we'll leave that for next time, since this is going to be a multi-week thing. So next time we will take a look at this survey and see if we can actually get it linked to a database such that we can collect and host responses. And again, this is going to probably look a little more intimidating on the app side of things, just because it's in Shiny language. If you're someone that's been using R Markdown or Quarto to author papers or slides or reports, then this file, the QMD, shouldn't actually look too bad. And And let's just go ahead and put ticks on here and see what that renders like. Oh, we already have ticks, so I think we've already seen that. And we should be able to change that with CSS as well. Right now it's rendering in as just kind of a purple Arial font, it looks like, with a little bit of a gray background on it. Okay, so I think that's probably it for tonight. Next week we will take a look at this project folder that we have with the template QMD, and we'll try to link to a database such that we can start to play with this a little bit and see what the responses look like. See if in fact the item itself is identified as penguins, and that the responses are coming in as these four on the right here. Okay, happy election night, everybody. I hope it goes the way you want, or at least I hope it goes well enough where we still have the capability to stream next week. Good night.